Hi everyone, welcome to this Invention Batch 2 second Dev Diary. I'm Mod Deg.
I'm Moderator.
And I'm Mod 2.
We want to talk to you about Batch 2, even though a little while ago we announced the cancellation of expansions, that we're moving away from that model. Invention Batch 2 is still going ahead, even though that was going to be part of one of those expansions. We want to let you know where we're at, our progress, we're still working on it, and talk about some of the feedback that we've taken on board from you guys from the previous Dev Diary. So as a refresher, what are we planning for Invention Batch 2? What are the bullet points?
Yeah, so originally we said that 99 to 120 content, we're looking at new devices for that. We're also looking at introducing this idea of machines and also level 10 plus benefits. All of those things are still happening. We haven't changed that at all. So we'll still be going ahead with all of these new devices and machines and whatnot.
Now it's not part of an expansion. Are there any changes that we're making to our plans for Invention?
So now we've got a lot more time to do Invention. We've addressed loads of quality of life fixes based off lots of player kind of pain points, removing inspiration and kind of making a few devices maybe stackable, gizmos, stuff like that, and lots of other fixes.
So why are we removing inspiration? Why have we done that?
So one of the core reasons when we're removing inspiration is it's quite a big player pain point. Whenever we'd add kind of a new inspiration item to the game, the players wouldn't be allowed to kind of get that as soon as they possibly could. They'd have to kind of get the inspiration, then unlock the item, kind of not as soon as they wanted to, as it were. And inspiration, when the skill was first released, accomplished what it kind of wanted to do. But as we kind of got further and further on, inspiration kind of became more of a tricky game to play rather than actually a fun player experience.
Some players as well, they'd stockpiled inspiration by not unlocking other sort of blueprints because they weren't actually at 200 mil or 120 yet, so they had that build up. So they had it straight away, whereas other players that had 200 mil and no inspiration, they had to do that grind and it didn't actually seem fair.
Yeah. And we don't want to incentivize people to sit there with loads of blueprints of like things that they have done the work for, but they don't want to discover something, or they're even scared to discover it because they're worried, well, a new piece of content is going to come out. I want to have all of my inspiration stockpiled in case I want that immediately. Like that's not a good, it's not a good feel. It's not a good experience.
I think inspiration did its kind of job when the skill was released because it kind of drip fed all the kind of blueprints into it. But now as we're kind of expanding that, it's just a kind of a big limiter. And I feel like inspiration served its purpose in the game.
How else have you improved my invention experience?
Yeah, so we looked at the problems with siphoning when you're leveling up your items and you accidentally go beyond level 10 if you're disassembling, or level 12 when you're siphoning things. And the solution we've come up with for that is to have this idea of like an auto siphon. So something that might be wielded in a pocket slot or just in your inventory, which you can store lots of siphons into, configure it to work on, say, armor, weapons, tools, whatever you want, and you can set the level that you want it to auto siphon. And then when your weapon actually reaches that level, it will just do the siphon for you. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, I've gone to level 13 or 15 or whatever it is, because it will just be done for you. Obviously you have to keep on topping up the siphon itself with new siphon, but it should alleviate that problem altogether.
So another few examples of stuff we've done. If you mouse over your components, they'll display now what perks those components will generate. We've made gizmo shells stackable, so you can make up to 60 of those at once now, kind of really quickly in your inventory. And we've made Tradable Augmentis.
So in the previous Dev Diary, a couple of months ago, we described invention machines and what their purpose was, how they were going to work, and sort of our general direction for them. And since releasing that Dev Diary, we've had dozens and dozens of pages of suggestions and feedback. How has that changed our plans for machines?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that we noticed was that we are going along the right lines. A lot of the suggestions that were coming out for not just machines but devices as well were similar to ones that we've already created before that Dev Diary had been released, which is good for us to know that we are going along, along that right line. But on top of that as well, for the actual changes to machines, the big thing that came back was that they wanted to be in the guild. So you've got this unknown area of the guild, like these boarded up staircases, which players don't know anything about, and they want to explore that. Obviously this is now going to be the last big update for Invention, so there should be no unanswered questions. So using that space, putting something there, makes sense. So
what was the plan before that? What were we originally going to try?
Yeah, so players originally, when it was coming with an expansion, they would have had to have gone around to Invention around the world. So there would have been, say, a few hotspots in Catherby, a few hotspots in Varrock, and you would have had to have gone into each of these locations to do your machine management and whatnot. But say the players really, really wanted it to be in the guild. We want to fulfill that promise, and that's where they're going to be.
What other big suggestions do we have outside of machines?
For example, we've got the Adrenaline dummy, which is something that you can build through Invention. It's similar to the other dummies you'll get off Treasure Hunter, but it doesn't give you any XP, and you just kind of put it down outside of combat.
Yeah, so it'll be something which you bring along with you to your boss fights. So in between kills, you can deploy it, attack it to keep your adrenaline up high, and then as soon as that boss spawns, you've got an ultimate ready for you already.
There's also a Cog Toggle, and this is basically allowing players to turn on and off at their will all the cogs on their augmented items. So your Abyssal Whip now with all its cogs will just be your regular Abyssal Whip. It will still function as its augmented Abyssal Whip with all the benefits, but visually it won't have its cogs on. If you're in, say, a PvP zone like the Wilderness, it will still have its cogs on because kind of there is still that PvP element to that. But outside of those areas, your free will of how you choose to show your augmented items is now yours.
A lot of people didn't like that big cog on all of their equipment. It wasn't necessarily particularly pleasing to the eye. They're similar to retro skill capes, right? Yeah. Where you can switch between whether you use 2017 skill capes versus 1990 skill capes.
So in summary, Invention Batch 2 is still coming. We're going to have post-99 content, we have machines, we're going to have item level benefits past 10, which we spoke about more in the previous Dev Diary. We've got a whole load of quality of life changes, and we're listening to your feedback and we're taking it on board and we're making changes based on it. So keep it coming, we love seeing it. That's all. Thank you very much.